Shazam 15, Josie Campbell writing with Emanuela Lupacchino on the art. So this is the final issue of this arc. Not the book, thankfully. Campbell starts a new arc next month. But this has some big developments in it. Obviously we started doing that sort of second narration for Freddy last issue. There was that second, the little green box along with his that was sort of doubting everything he was saying. And I think we interpret it as, this is like, his inner, I don't know, depression, whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
that
it's that voice that's telling him that he doesn't deserve things.
Yeah, and that sort of builds up to something at the end of this as well. It's a simple little thing, but like even the title page when it says "Where in the world is Billy Batson finale?" I'm just noticing this now, but the color scheme for that text and the box around it is blue and yellow, and I'm like, oh, that's actually really subtle and smart for where this is going at the end. So yeah, you've got the big monster that what's the Rat King's name?
Well, I don't remember, but they're the Submen.
The Submen, thank you.
Yeah, this is a Subman that's popping up.
Is it Kronos? I want to say Kronos.
That comes out later.
Okay,
yes.
Fair enough. I tell you, the one thing about reading a lot of comic books is that eventually, a lot of these villain names just all start blurring together.
It's Cole. Cole is the king of the Submen, who's descended from Kronos.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Okay. Right,
yes.
Okay. So I'm not just pulling that word out of my ass then. That's good.
No.
So yeah, Mary's up in the street level fighting the monsters, the main henchmen and all that. Dudley's trying to help, and that's when the Shazam comes in and hits some of the monsters, and all the kids are in it with Tawny driving. To which Mary points out, Tawny can't drive. And then one of them says, "Yeah, that's great. If you want to knock people over, that's a great skill here."
Yeah, that's a real monster. Also, can we go back to Dudley where he goes, never fear, Uncle Marvel's here, and he's got a crowbar, right? And he's got a sheet wrapped around his neck like a cape.
That's it.
And he goes, "I'm helping watch," and he yells Shazam, and then that's where the Shazvan comes in.
Yes.
Right, and he goes, "Holy moly, I do have powers." I thought that was so funny.
There's something funny to me about this sweet old man with these best of intentions, but his main superpower is effectively the same thing that killed Jason Todd. It's just a murder weapon. That's all it is.
But no, it's a tool because a pry bar is used for opening boxes as well. It was just meant to put Jason Todd in a box when he used my Joker. So, but yeah, him going, "Oh, I do have powers," and it's just the van barging through these monsters. I thought that was well timed.
Yes, that was funny. The books, Campbell's killing it. Really, I've liked this arc a lot, and she had a lot to prove because this was, after Wade's tenure on the book. But I think this arc's really built up to something quite cool here. Yeah, so yeah, I was a little confused when we first cut to Billy because I actually I was like, okay, where's Billy exactly? And that's kind of the point. We don't really know where he is. He went through a magic portal the last issue, and he ended up here, and he's with this kid. But yeah, so that leads to a whole thing with Billy's story. Meanwhile, the Secret Society of Monsters are working with the Submen, and they've made a pact with them, and they're basically going to bring down the entire city of Philadelphia into the Submen sort of layer or level. So we get this big great 2-page layout of these sort of kind of fissures appearing all over the city, and Mary and Dudley kind of tripping over and oh god, what's happening. I think one of the things I liked about this issue is that Billy gets a cool story where he gets to sort of build up to the, okay, you know what, I am Captain Marvel. He doesn't say those words obviously because we don't say Captain Marvel anymore, but that's basically what he builds up to. I think Mary gets to a complete badass up in the surface level as she's holding up the city, basically, right? Because basically it stops moving, and the type of monsters is now. Wait, why is the ground stop sinking? And you just see Mary holding it up on her shoulders. It's kind of badass. I love that both of those characters get really good beats in here, and then on top of that, the third plot is building up to Freddy's ending, which is a fist pump moment with a caveat. That caveat being, of course, that it seems like whatever's giving him his powers back, which is separate from, he's not getting his powers from Billy, he's not getting his powers from Mary, he picks up this Shazam-esque sort of like, magic stone and gets the powers. I feel like we're going to get kind of like, I don't want to say like evil Freddy, but I think we're going to get like in Smallville when Clark has red kryptonite, I think we're going to get that version of Freddy, and I think the voice that he was hearing, like that second narration, was coming from this artifact of some kind.
Yeah, so they have Evil Eye, who's the graffiti artist that was dropping, making all the portals. Ends up making
also pulling knives out of the graffiti to use as stabbing weapons. Yeah, go on.
And it's through Evil Eye that Billy ends up back at the Rock of Eternity, but he's in the hall that is holding the 7 deadly sins, and also because there's narration going on by Billy about, he's like, will you defend the earth from villainy, keeping the instruments of evil locked in the Rock of Eternity for all eternity. And it's here that you see all of the stuff and this green glowing lightning bolt there.
Yeah, actually, so just to clarify what you're saying there. Yeah, the idea that the writing here is very good and that it has Billy accepting the oath to protect all the evil things that are locked in the Rock of Eternity, as Billy is tempted to use one of them, to take one of them. Right, so we hear that they are bad news right as Billy's reaching for one. So, Freddy's reaching for one. Sorry. Freddy. That's quite good. It makes it feel ominous. So even though we get that full page spread at the end where he's blue and yellow, he's got the long hair, he's, I'm Freddy, I'm back, right? We've got a third Shazam family member again with powers. It's clearly coming from a bad place, which is tough because it means the story of Freddy having to give them up is going to be... Because, this entire story, if you remember last issue, when the submen were asking about, like, hey, have you ever had power? He has flashbacks. You see him, like, remembering being Captain Marvel Jr. I wonder what they call him now, actually, like his hero name. Like, just the Captain Jr.? Like,
I think Freddy would have issues with that, because he doesn't want to be anybody's sidekick, right?
Yeah, especially with the attitude he seems to have.
Him calling him the Captain, too, I think would be funny. Something along those lines.
Oh, no. What if he walks up to Billy and goes, look at me. I'm the captain now.
I wouldn't be mad. I think Josie Campbell could make that work for reals. Like, I know you're saying it to be funny, but I think she could make that work.
This is a rare case where my dumb joke would actually work in the comic if the writer wanted to try and pull it off. I agree.
But yeah, everything that you're saying about him feeling like he has something to prove, and almost like this is getting to his ego, because where all those words came from is Billy going through. Essentially, he ended up in Zeus's memory, right? And you find out
kind of. I mean, it's just
he essentially locks Zeus, being this ageless being, locks his memories away in the Rock of Eternity.
Yeah,
but they're almost like a danger room type thing where he can go and experience them.
Yeah, I was reading like a little pocket dimension he made, so he can go and revisit things. Just one more thing on Freddy though before we go to Billy. The idea that the Shazvan was like a foreshadowing of what's happening, because I like the idea that he was like compensating for like thinking that he can't contribute by, hey, I'm the guy with the van, I've got the wheels now, I can drive. And it's this idea of compensating not only because he doesn't have powers, but because of his disability. This idea that he has to, so I think that being a foreshadowing that he really wants to try and compensate and like feel and prove to the others that he's useful in some way is kind of the sad story here that is going to come out even more now that we're going to be dealing with this idea. And I think this idea that these powers are going to be treated almost like a drug storyline where it's like he has to like give it up, he has to not be addicted to them. Be careful, do not become addicted to water. That's a Mortem Joe from Mad Max Fury Road, everyone. You're welcome. Anyway, to Billy, and he's in Zeus's memory, and the key point here though is that he learns that basically Zeus was also an orphan, as were a lot of these other gods that make up the Shazam collective, if you will, and basically says, like, you don't have to be, because I like this transition actually. It's basically Zeus is the one talking to him and narrating, as you see that all of the others have like lost people or whatever.
It's that they're, even though they're gods, they are flawed in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
You know, they're still subject to emotion and wants and needs.
And failures.
And that's what drove them, right? And that's what drove them to become gods, right? They're almost like the struggle reveals who you really are. And then that's where we get to...
Yeah, it transitions to the captain. And Billy finds out here that the captain is not just some separate entity. He is literally what he is going to be as an adult. And this is where, you know, they point out wisdom, and Solomon, I assume this is saying this.
Yeah.
Wisdom is not intelligence. That's a misunderstanding of what wisdom is. Wisdom is experience. Wisdom is more than that. And that's why the captain is literally who you're going to be as an adult. This is the older, wise version of you. And you are both part of the same person, you know. So as much as we've been treating it as like two separate entities, but it's really only become two separate entities because Billy's been kind of resisting the captain side of him. So yeah, like we get this big build up here where we get this great moment just as Freddy's reaching for the gold Shazam looking artifact, or even slightly green, even a push. And we get this great page where Billy accepts to join and say the word. So we get this page where he says Shazam, and the page is split with lightning down the middle, and in the other side of the page is Freddy saying Shazam. It's like, chef's kiss. This all came together very, very beautifully.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah,
even the at the top where you see the electricity between Billy and the captain.
Oh, and Freddy and the artifact, they've got a little spark as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, very good. So it's just as Billy's accepting his own flaws and the idea that because that's the other thing that you know, Zeus or the captain says is that like you don't have this role. You're not the captain because you're the perfect child or the perfect person. You have this role because you've been through a lot and still fight for good anyway. That's what gives you the qualifications, if you will. So. But the idea that he's like accepting this burden because he's the one who should take it, as Freddy's reaching out and taking the power without like earning it, is a very interesting comparison between the two paths.
Well, and then it's almost like, and again, it's not an evil version of all of that, but it's something that whatever is reaching out to Freddy, it's stroking his ego.
Yes.
In those blues.
It's definitely malicious
narration. Yeah, and it's going, he's like, because you refuse to lose, because you realize that you are worthy, because you're only as powerless as you let yourself be. So again, it's stroking his own ego, and there can be a healthy way for Freddy to take this, but is he ready to accept that message that, you know, we'll find out. Like you said, it could end up being like a drug storyline where he feels like he's only like this because of the powers. That's where he's getting his worth from.
Yeah, so Mary's still holding up the city. The captain now shows up and, you know, strikes a bunch of lightning to fix the city, which is maybe a bit of an easy fix because, you know, but whatever, magic, just go with it. So, you know, Mary's happy to see Billy. The king of the submen jumps out and is very upset, and that's when lightning strikes him, notably green lightning. And the final page is we have Freddy in his full outfit, but with the addition of a second Shazam logo inside the Shazam logo, which is the sort of the green tint one, so it's like the artifact inside his actual yellow symbol.
Yeah.
So very curious to see where we go from here. But I love I like that it's built up to this. It feels like Josie Campbell really had like a direction of what the next arc was going to be, and maybe Wade had like an outline of like what the next few arcs would be, so she's working from that or whatever. But it still feels like it's all very like leading into the next. Everything feels very thought out. So, and even his speech bubble's got like a green kind of border around it. You know, there's definitely like all these like hints telling you something's not quite right, which is cool. So yeah, very, very nice. So yeah. This arc was pretty good. Particularly the start and the end of it. I think it was good in the middle, but I think the first and last issue of this, like I think 5 issue arc, I think have been very, very strong.
Well, And I like here too that it's gone from feeling antagonistic with the gods, with Billy and the captain, to them being like, no, see, like we know you're worthy, but you need to know why you're worthy. And so them coming along and like them realizing their place as well. I thought that was a nice little transition from what Wade was doing with them to here. But yeah, seeing now that Freddy has his power back and we'll have another Shazam sibling, it feels like we're heading a certain direction. So it almost is, I feel like Campbell's taken what Wade was doing and is kind of doing it her own way now.
Yeah, I have no doubt that they'll all have powers again at some point in this run, but I don't think Freddy's keeping this particular power.
No.
Unless they do a story where he tames it, like the Green Power Ranger is able to keep his power even when he breaks away from Rita. Maybe they'll do something like that, which would be interesting because it would mean that Freddy has powers now. He'd be the third character at the family to have powers, but all of their powers would be coming from different sources, which is interesting.
Which makes sense as well, because of how that it's not Billy giving them the powers, right? They're finding these things on their own.
Yeah.
You know, with Mary and the goddesses, and now Freddy with whatever this is.
It's going to be hard to justify 3 more different sources of power for the other 3 characters that need them.
You know what, though? I could almost see them being beyond that, right? I feel like there's a place for them within the family that isn't them being superheroes, right? And maybe that's what Freddy's lesson will be, too. Maybe he won't end up with the powers, but, he'll find his worth within the family, and it's not having the powers. It's just being there for Billy and Mary and Pedro and Eugene and Darla. There, boom, nailed it. When they need him, powers or not. I can see it going that way as well.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I would still bet money on them all having powers later on at some point. It's a comic book. They're going to do it.
It's time to learn all the other pantheons of gods to find out where they're getting their powers from.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, like obviously Josie, not Josie, sorry, it's the writer. Mary has her powers from, the Amazon, like goddesses and stuff. Like maybe, I don't know. What about?
Yeah, I mean, you have the Norse ones hanging out there right now in Power Girl, right?
Yeah, I was searching for I was trying to think of something funny to say. And I just could not think of a funny group of people to say that the powers were coming from.
Yeah.
Anyway, will you rate Shazam 15?
I'm glad you just didn't throw out like the Germans, what am I rating? I'm gonna give this an 8.5. I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I really liked how this wrapped up the arc. I think Shazam is still kind of low key one of the most fun books that's coming out from DC right now, and hopefully it keeps being successful enough to keep going. So 8.5 out of 10 for me as well.